Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer too. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage. I can't.
Hello, Cuban Writer here with Darkling Faye.
Hello, and happy birthday, Cuban Writer.
Yes, it's my birthday today. And we celebrated partially by going out to watch Guy Ritchie's new King Arthur movie, subtitled Something About a Sword.
Starring everyone's favorite, or at least with the women, and probably some men, Charlie Hunnam.
Yes, Charlie Hunnam.
I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Sorry.
And several other people, including Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, is in this film.
Jude Law.
And Jude Law. Yeah, you can see who I care about isn't who everyone else in the world cares about.
Oh, that's true.
And after watching the film, I have to say I did not enjoy it very much.
Ooh.
What did you think?
Well, I will say I came in with zero expectations of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really... Guy Ritchie's films for me are either hit and miss. Either really like them or I'm like, ooh.
I thought the Sherlock Holmes ones were pretty good, particularly the first one.
Yeah, I guess my thing with Sherlock Holmes, though, is I so adore the BBC series that the movies and even Elementary and other things just really pale in comparison. So it's very hard for me to enjoy it when I already feel like I know who Sherlock is in the world and who encompasses him. So that was always kind of my problem. But I have enjoyed some of Guy Ritchie's films, but like I said, they're usually hit and miss. I came in with no expectations. I hadn't heard anything about this film. It wasn't one that I had been anticipating to see, and I really liked it.
How about that?
I'm going to put this on my Guy Ritchie like list.
Well, so let me tell you what I did like about the film.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I thought that the imagery was stunning. I thought that the musical selections were excellent and exciting, too. That's it. How about for you?
Really? That's it?
Yeah.
Only two things?
Yeah.
I will say it is visually stunning. They did a really great job of recreating this kind of medieval type of world between the clothing and all of that settings and stuff. I thought did good. I actually also thought Jude Law did a pretty good bad guy. I thought he really encompassed the role well. I don't think that he did anything terrible with that. He definitely was a bright spot on this.
I'm sorry, you're right. The acting was fine. The acting was good. Okay.
I will say I did enjoy some of the action scenes. I know exactly the ones that you don't like because I know your taste so well. I will say that probably what I feel that you didn't like about it is you love medieval tales of old. And this is very much a Guy Ritchie film. So if you are trying to go into the movie so that you will be swallowed up in centuries of old, you're not going to find it in this film. Because this is definitely from start to finish a very Guy Ritchie film, from the aesthetics of the camera work to how he does action and everything like that. He really has, in this particular movie, tried to blend and mix a fusion of sorts. You know, that's the cool thing to do with food. He's done this in this movie by trying to take modern aspects and put it into kind of a medieval setting. And so probably if you're just expecting that medieval type of thing, this might not work for you because of the modern aspects that he definitely does put into it.
Well, some of the music is modern, but I still liked it. A lot of the language is modern. It had the very much the sense of watching Snatch or something. Even Sherlock Holmes felt more authentic to its period than this film did. The clothing and background details were not correct for the setting. There was a bizarre mix of different cultures in here. I did not like the equipment that the bad guys were using.
I didn't particularly mind that so much. I really enjoyed this story. I liked the characters. I liked the interaction between them. I was surprised that I enjoyed it because like I said, I came in with very low expectations. I thought it was a fun time.
I did not like the way they filmed the action scenes.
You don't like...
They cut them to pieces.
You also don't like that kind of choppy...
Yeah.
You hate that, where it doesn't happen in all of them, but you do feel like there is a couple of moments where they put on Go camera hats or something.
Yes.
And it felt in that particular shot, it felt very kind of cartoony. On how you get to see their faces when they're running down an alley and that. It did feel like a moment of...
There are parts where I didn't like how it was filmed. I didn't like how it was edited. I felt like they fed the film sometimes into a shredding machine and then pasted it back together for the fight scenes.
They do end up slowing down some of the fight scenes, which you don't always...
No. You know what? I like the ones that were slow better because they at least filmed it in such a way you could follow better what was going on. The other ones are like 15 cuts for 5 seconds of fighting. I don't like that. I constantly had the sensation while watching this film that there were hints of better films that I wish I was watching instead. The story of his father at the very beginning looks like it would have made for a much more interesting movie than the story of King Arthur. The story of the quest he has to do to understand his history and unlock the powers of the sword looked like a more interesting adventure than the one I watched in this film. I'd say the thing I liked least about this film was King Arthur's story against the evil king who was ruling his kingdom. And the thing that I liked the most was every glimpse, flashback, and everything of every other story that there was to be told in this film. I also didn't like the zigzagging through time and the constant flashbacks. I know that's the thing to do, and I like a Pulp Fiction and other stories that do it, but I don't like the way it was done here. Every time they would show a glimpse of something that I would find interesting, then they'd go back to the boring, well, not boring, but less interesting tale that was actually being told. It's very frustrating to see so many things that I like and yet put together in a way that I really didn't like.
Wow. I liked it. I thought it was fun. Sorry.
Yeah, well,
you're like the negative Nancy now. You're the negative one. I'm usually like, this sucks and it's crap, and you're like, no, it's so great.
I mean, even his...
I feel like we've like role reversed.
Even his acid trip that he goes on near the end of the film, where he sees mystical things in the forest, looked more interesting than the actual content of the movie I was watching. I was like, I want to have an adventure in the mystical acid trip forest. I don't want to go with him to defeat the evil king.
Yeah, it did. I can understand that. You also come from a very role-playing tabletop background. So the moments that you are mentioning that you really enjoy, you could tell you could see them fitting perfectly into a tabletop campaign.
Yes.
So I could see why you're like, no, let's go on a campaign. I want to play this character. Let me see what happens. So, yeah, they can't. But then also you don't want to have like a 6-hour movie. So that's part of the problem is trying to fit all this information into one.
Here's what this movie felt like. For those of you who have watched Lord of the Rings or read the book Lord of the Rings, especially in the book, there's a segment at the end of the book where Frodo comes back home and there's a fight to recapture the Shire. I feel like this movie is the fight to recapture the Shire, and they keep flashing back to the Lord of the Rings for brief glimpses, and you're like, whoa, that's a much more interesting story. Why aren't we looking at that?
I want to go on that adventure.
Like, well, there was a time when there were mages everywhere, and they were doing amazing things, and there was this massive world war against the mages, and we see about 5 minutes of that, and then we go on. And I'm like, no, that's the story I want to hear. We hardly see Merlin in this film. He's constantly mentioned, but I think he's in the film for 10 seconds during a flashback, another annoying flashback that makes you think there was something more exciting they had to tell you, but they're not going to.
I wasn't even sure if Merlin was still alive.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't clear, except that they said Merlin sent another person, so you're like, okay, I guess he's still there. But you only see him for 10 seconds or 5 seconds in a flashback.
Or maybe he kind of had mystical powers and knew what was going to happen, so he set something up so someone would be there to help. Like, you don't know. But
favorite character was the Merlin's assistant, the young lady who had very interesting animal powers.
The mage. Of a druid. I do have to say it was kind of cool how they did mages here, where they were very in tune with nature.
Yeah, I liked everything about her.
Elementals or animals, like that was.
Where I didn't like her was in the last use of her magic, which seemed too Deus Ex Machina to me. I'm like, where was this before? This would have solved so many problems. Why were you using animals in such a minimalistic way before if you could do this? So I didn't like the final use of her power, but every other use of her power, which was more subtle and relied heavily on what was naturally available, was excellent. That's how I imagine a druid in D&D.
I was going to say, I thought they did a great magic user type of character in this situation. I would have liked to have a little bit more interaction with her and the other group and him, because it did feel like I don't know, I just would have felt like it felt more of a bond between them, because they did seem to both need each other in a way. Like the story definitely, and even the lady in the lake is like, you guys have to work together type of thing. And it's like, well, it would have been better if it felt more natural that happened, instead of just like, oh, some aberration in the lake says I need to do this, so I'm going to do this, and not, more authentic. Because what I liked about his character, Arthur, is that he really did appreciate the friendships that he had made. And even though he didn't know his family, he had made his own family. And that was important to him. And he really did care about those people and value that. And so it would have been nice if you had felt that the relationship between them felt more genuine, that, oh, here's someone that I'm now going to invite into my family tribe, because...
Once again, everything that is only glimpsed or mentioned in this story would have made a more interesting story than the story we're actually watching. Very frustrating.
So I hate to even ask this question, but how many Excalibur Swords would you give this movie?
I guess just because it was visually interesting and there were glimpses of interesting things, and the soundtrack was exciting to listen to, I would give it 1.5 Excalibur Swords out of 5 Excalibur Swords.
Oh my goodness.
Almost 2, but not quite.
So do you consider this better than the first episode of Iron Fist?
The first episode of Iron Fist really isn't worth any Excalibur Swords.
Oh, okay. So, phew! Guy Ritchie, yeah, raised the bar that high at least. Good for you. I would give it 4 Excalibur Swords out of 5.
So, how does this rank against other King Arthur films you've seen?
I'm trying to think of the last actual, movie setting of it. There have been a lot of TV shows.
That's true.
Like the last movie that I can remember that was in this setting was so bad. It had one of my favorite actresses in it too, Keira Knightley, who was the
oh, I know what you're talking about. The one that's like Roman and
yeah, but it's totally the King Arthur tale, just in a weird setting. That is the last movie that I can recall actually movie-wise that I've seen of King Arthur, and that was terrible.
Well, most King Arthur movies are terrible. So Guy Ritchie hasn't really brought down the bar. There's some that I really like, probably half for nostalgia reasons, like the original Excalibur, which was out when I was very young. I did not like much the Sean Connery one that came later with Richard Gere.
Yeah.
And most of them, like the Roman one was interesting, but it really didn't knock my socks off. I have yet to see the King Arthur movie that makes me go, wow, I love that King Arthur movie.
I do feel that they were trying to set this up to be a franchise. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. There wasn't a lot of people in the theater.
There was maybe 10.
Yeah, and this is an opening weekend, so I was like, ooh, I don't think this is going to be as successful. I don't think it's that bad of a movie. Like, I think it's worthwhile to see. You apparently don't with your very low sword score, but...
I would not see it again. The only reason I would ever have anything to do with it again is maybe to pull clips, like to illustrate to people, oh, this is what a wood nymph might look like or something. But I would have no interest in actually watching the story again. I did shout out to Thousand Eyes or 100 Eyes or whoever was the kung fu guy in this.
Oh, yeah.
Was in a much better series that I watched on, was it Netflix? With Marco Polo.
Oh, yeah, it was on Netflix. Marco Polo's on Netflix.
I like seeing him again, but, this movie has to be more than me seeing glimpses of things that are interesting without forming a really good story out of them. I love the imagery they used for the bad guy at the beginning and end of the film. What an awesome-looking bad guy. Too bad he wasn't in a better movie.
No, I do have to say, some of the way that they did magic in this film is outstanding. It's how I've always kind of envisioned magic to work in these type of settings, and it's really so satisfying to actually be able to see how you envision it to life in a way that does feel very realistic.
I'd almost like to say that anytime something supernatural is not happening, there's not much to like about the movie.
Oh, okay.
I know you did.
I enjoyed it.
But I was like, okay. So, that's my review of the movie. Okay. But Darkling Faye really liked it.
You do get to see him with his shirt off. Yay!
Well, on that note, I'll be signing off to go to dinner. Thank you, Miranda, for banging your tail against something. And my wife can't even speak right now because she's being licked.
Being licked by the dog, guys. Sorry.
We'll catch you next time.
Goodbye, darling.
But you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. I'm half crazy, all for the love